I don't think it's enough for an organization to think, okay, they can go learn by themselves. We don't need to do anything, because they spend 7 hours, 8 hours in this space with you. So why wouldn't you give them the skills to communicate with each other? They need to make each other feel safe. When they go out and presenting you as a brand, they need to make the people there feel safe. And they will also want to be safe. And this is why I think organizations need to do something so people stop feeling so scared about things that are unknown to them. So they need to do this in spaces where they are safe and in spaces where they are already familiar with these people around them. Have conversations and encourage people to have those conversations.
Hello, everybody on the Embracing Only podcast. I'm going solo today with our fabulous guest, Mary Waweru. I'm so excited to have you on here. Mary is an influential voice with over 2.6 million impressions, folks. 2.6 million impressions in the past year alone on LinkedIn, where she's built a strong following, educating professionals on topics around her work. Her journey started in her homeland of Kenya, where she met with a county women representative at Parliament through her gender equity advocacy. She later advised Kenya's High Commissioner in the UK, which is pretty fabulous, Mary, on content and service design. I wondered how that went. And most recently in Helsinki, Mary had a successful stint at Wunderman Thompson as the global project manager in content maintenance for Nokia.com, the Nokia Foundation websites, and she spearheaded numerous digital and content-related projects for clients like Volvo, Dell, Nokian Tires, and Cone. Mary also contributed in research, communications, and cultural strategy on social impact projects with clients like Bayer. Right here in my backyard, actually, Mary, literally 35 minutes away. And Mary's full focus now is with Crest Impact, where she's guiding organizations to build anti-racist and inclusive cultures, practices, policies, and communications. And in this role, she's facilitated diversity training workshops, designed and delivered anti-racism and DEI courses online, in person, and internationally. She's spoken at international panels and worked with global clients, including Unity Technologies, Next Games, a Netflix game studio, Avon, The Big Picture, etc. That's just a small listing of all the amazing accomplishments she's had. Her social impact work has seen her partner with higher education institutes like Haaga-Helia University of Applied Sciences and UBU Academy University in the Social Exclusion Master's Degree Program. I am just so thrilled that I got to meet her on LinkedIn and finally engage with your voice and have you here on the Embracing Only podcast. So welcome to the Embracing Only podcast, Mary.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That I think is the longest introduction I've ever had. I'm like, are you speaking about me or someone else?
Yes, we are. I know people always are like, oh my gosh, that's me. And I think it's so important that we take a moment to just sit back and listen to people talk about how amazing we are for all the amazing work we do. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you for having me here.
You're literally a special corner on the interwebs of LinkedIn because we don't have a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion voices of people of color in Europe on LinkedIn. So you have a lot of individuals who don't identify as being women of color or people of color who say and have a lot to say, and that's great. But it's so great to also have a perspective that is from the global majority as well, which is just beautiful. So this is what I want to hear first. We share a little bit of this amazing background that you have, but I want to really understand your journey. Like, what got you from Kenya to Finland, from being this project manager of this huge agency to doing some of the hardest work, I would say, people are having to do in corporations today, which is work around anti-racism?
Well, so my story started when I was 22 years old in Nairobi. I have a twin sister. We are not identical. So she came to Finland in 2003. And then we thought to ourselves, me and my other sister, you know what, we want to be together. We want to be in the same country. So the following year, myself and the other sister joined my twin sister in Finland. And the only reason we came to Finland was to go to school here. So we all joined different universities of applied sciences, different parts of Finland. So we were separated, but we were still in the same country. And that's what we wanted as we were studying. So that's how I got here. And I'm still here.
Love it. I love it. So that's what got you here. But what took you from the work that you're doing? You were doing as a project manager, working for these companies, to then do this anti-racism work.
Yeah. So sometime in 2013, 2015, I was back home for about a year, 3 months. And I was doing a lot of advocacy and gender equity work, talking to women on social media. This is what we need to do. And at the time, we had a lot of issues with domestic violence, abuse against children. And we decided, you know what? We have had enough. We are not going to see this. And we actually had much worse things I don't want to even say. The horrible things were happening to women. And we decided to protest. Nowadays, I protest online, but in Kenya, I protest in other ways. So we decided we need to protest because we cannot be able to continue to take this. So we were out on the streets with placards. We said enough is enough. And then so we marched to Parliament. And there happened to be a woman representative there who had also gone through the same issues as a woman while in the work setting. So she really understood what we were doing. And so, yeah, that's how it started there. And then so when I come now to Finland, I came back to Finland in end of 2015. So when I came back, I did my master's, did other things, recruitment, all these things. And then while I was working as a project manager, the whole entire time I was creating content on anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when I finished working there, so my contract was not continued, economic situation, everyone knows it. So it was happening in end of 2023. So when my contract was not renewed, I decided, okay, it's January 2024. What am I going to do? I'm already creating all this content, educating people about diversity, equity, inclusion, social impact, neo-colonialism, all these things. I thought, okay, I'm already doing this and I enjoy doing this. Why don't I just set up something for myself where I can continue to do this and also combine with the gender equity work that I've done back home and just educate people professionally, make it a full-time thing. And then, I officially launched in April last year.
Yeah.
And so between January and April, I was still doing the content. I was doing the same things I do, protesting online, being an activist, and launched in April. And I am still here. And so the first things I did is I launched my first online course, Introduction to Anti-Racism. That was my very first thing. And it is the most amazing thing that I decided to do. Thank you to my twin sister. She gave me the idea. She's an amazing engineer. She's an amazing person. And that's how I'm now even getting contracts with organizations because people decided to come to my online courses, either in groups or individually. And then now we are finding ourselves working in the organizations and training more people.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So one, kudos to you, because a lot of times, a lot of folks have experienced layoffs or restructures or other transitions. And during these times of transitions, you could really pull yourself down to be like, oh my God, I'm not worth it. I don't belong. I don't know what to do next. Sure, I can go find another job. But what's interesting is that what you were really passionate about, even before you decided to go all into this, you were building already. And I think that is so, so important just for anyone and everyone listening here is that don't let your brand be defined by the logo that's on your business card, by the logo that you stand, in front of a trade show booth at. Let your brand be defined by the first, middle, and last name, if you have a middle name, that is yours. Because then when these things happen, which we have no control over, quite frankly, you are able to build, pick up, and know you can lean into this thing that you love so much and truly make it your own. And it's great that you leaned on your community as well, right? Like in your case, your sister, because a lot of times when this happens, people are so afraid to ask for help. They're so afraid to be like, okay, how do I activate my network? How do I engage with my network to build what I need to build? So that's amazing. Yeah. So I have a question here, Mary. So you work with all these organizations. They have these folks who take these amazing courses that you have. We put the links for everyone listening in the show notes and in the blog as well. So you can go take these courses. Highly recommend it. So you have these people take these courses. You have these brands that welcome you up on stage. But once those camera turns off, how do we get these individuals and organizations to see the value of cultural humility, racial equity, and social impact in the confines of a team, in the confines of a corporate organization?
I think the first thing we need to do, and I'm going to base this on something very fresh. So yesterday I was at a training session, and I'm going to base this on that.
Yeah.
First thing we need to do is that we need to welcome people who are not represented into these spaces. And this is very important for us because usually, especially in the Nordic region, the people who do this kind of work are usually women, and usually the women are white.
Yeah.
So we need to change how we do things, because if we are trying to make people understand something that is new to them, then we need to use different methods, and we have to be as authentic as possible. So in my case, yesterday, I did something different. We discussed with the client, I'm going to come in, but we were not going to start with anti-racism work, because that is a bit more deeper. We discussed, you know what? They've never even had a training session on DEI. So let's start from the basics. Let's discuss everything. Let's discuss all the different dimensions and the diversity. What is diversity? What is this? And then there's actually a very important thing that I did. So before I even started doing the definitions, I had information for everyone. And I said, this is why you're here. And I went point after point without first describing anything, just telling them, why are we doing DEI training? Because we need it. Why do we need it? Because if we don't do this, then this happens. And I use practical examples with my clients, and I tell them, if we don't do this, we're going to end up here. And I say, for example, this is this company, they haven't done this, this is what happens. So this is what they need to understand. They need to understand, number one, why are they doing the DEI training? Why are they even having this discussion? How does it affect our society? How does it affect our brands? And how does it even affect how organizations partner with other organizations? Because you know what? If you are an organization that doesn't care about people, marginalized people, guess what? That's not going to be the same reality for the next organization. It's not going to be the same reality for organizations that want to partner with you. So we just simply need to educate them. We need to go into this like we are going into a classroom. This is why we're doing this, because of this. This, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen. So even though we are not talking about the business case for diversity, we are talking about every single way an organization is going to affect the people within the organization, the people externally, and all the people who want to partner with them if they don't take this seriously.
I saw recently in the news where I think on TV, there was a comedian or a woman comedian in the UK who was asking a question to an individual of the global majority and asking basically in the way to say that, okay, educate me. What does this mean? And this individual, the person from the global majority, was like, no, you should do the work, figure it out. But there's an absolute time and place for that. There is actually lots of times and places for that, because there's a true fact about unpaid labor in this DE&I business. But this individual was like, no, I'm really curious. I do not understand this. And so we have lost the ability to have conversations wherein we can start at the basics without judgment and in a place of a two-way conversation, and not didactic in a way wherein the other person just feels belittled or stupid even for not even knowing this, right? So how can leaders, when they bring in someone like yourself, how can they create these spaces where there are individuals at all different levels of understanding, bring them together so it feels safe to have these conversations, knowing that this is a journey? Like, no one goes on the other end and is like, I'm a gold star, gold medal anti-racist now.
Yeah.
You know?
So myself, how I did, and I'm going to again go back to what I did yesterday.
Sure.
In the fundamentals and the basics of DEI. What I did is that I don't make it like a normal, ordinary classroom where I'm just talking and talking for 10 hours. What I do is give the definitions, tell them why we're here, and then I give them an exercise. And then the exercise is about people speaking to each other. And I tell them, turn around to the person near you.
Yeah.
The person can let you know if they are marginalized or not, but I want you to ask a question. If you feel unsure whether you are marginalized or not, I want you to ask the person near you, do my opinions on racism matter? Do my opinions on ableism matter? Do my opinions on gender equity matter? And I encourage them, have this conversation, because I'm not going to be here later. You'll have to be in the spaces with these people. And I want you to normalize having this conversation, because they don't have to be scary. So they turn to each other. At first, they're like, okay, this is a new thing. But then I see them warming up, and I'm walking around the room and I'm like, wow, this is really good. And they start to open up. And then you keep talking about different things, different concepts. And then you give them another exercise and you tell them, okay, this is what we need to speak about. And then after they stop speaking, then I come into the entire space and I talk to people and I tell them, okay, these are the answers. Because sometimes I have questions. These are the answers. This is how you do this. This is how you apologize. This is how you handle a person who comes to you telling you have been marginalized. So having these interactions and making them as real as possible. This is how you make them say, okay, this is something normal. It's something I will discuss with a leader next to me or someone at home. So just normalizing conversations and allowing people to make mistakes and to make guesses and even to be unsure.
I hope everyone listening just feels like their shoulders drop down a little bit, right? Because we're showing up in these spaces and it's charged. In 2020, when we were starting to have some of these conversations, a lot of us were doing work in organizations for decades before that. But we were openly starting to have conversations at the aftermath of George Floyd and others. And when we were having these conversations at that time, people were coming in from a perspective of, oh my gosh, like I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to say something wrong. I have the one person of color on my team. We let them educate us on what's the right and wrong thing to say. This person of color could identify as a Hispanic woman that knows nothing about Black culture. Doesn't matter. We're going to lean on her, which is not fair to any party, right? But with what you just said, I think there's so much power to it, which is how can we normalize having those conversations where you feel like you can truly be curious and explore versus having conversations that feel charged with the need to know the answer.
Yes, exactly. And this is when people get to that place because they do not have support. So if the only place, the only source of information you have is the internet, but you're working in an organization with lots of people, I don't think it's enough for an organization to think, okay, they can go learn by themselves. We don't need to do anything. Because they spend 7 hours, 8 hours in this space with you. So why wouldn't you give them the skills to communicate with each other? They need to make each other feel safe. When they go out and presenting you as a brand, they need to make the people there feel safe. And they will also want to be safe. And this is why I think organizations need to do something so people stop feeling so scared about things that are unknown to them. So they need to do this in spaces where they are safe, and in spaces where they are already familiar with these people around them. Have conversations and encourage people to have those conversations. And while you do that, have people who are experts or people who understand how this works so that they're able to assist them.
Yes, I think that's so important. You need to have those experts to help facilitate that safety, because you can't just assign it as a side project to the only woman on the team or the only person of color on the team, whatever intersection you want to pick. It's just not right. So talking about that, I hear a lot, I'm not racist. Okay, great. So we can start with this one. I'm not racist, which is not the same as being anti-racist.
Yes.
And so just in the spirit of like curiosity, learning, education for the folks here on the call, and I would highly encourage you, go take the courses, go educate yourself on your own terms. But how can we help leaders adopt that learning and understanding of being an anti-racist? And this is a huge question, but if you were to not to simplify something that's super complicated, but how do we understand anti-racism versus just I'm not a racist?
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
Well, the first thing I would ask someone is that how does your being not a racist benefit a society that is having issues based on race and racism? How does that help us? Because we do have issues. It's amazing to know you are not racist. But how does that solve this issue as a person who's part of this society? It doesn't. So you need to be anti-racist. There needs to be action. There needs to be commitment. There needs to be education and learning. Because then if you're just not racist, you're selfish. It doesn't benefit.
Oh, yes.
How does it, I just ask them, how does that benefit me? How does that benefit me as a person who's racialized as an African woman? How does that benefit a person who's racialized as Asian? It doesn't benefit anyone. So yeah, what do you want to do? Now we know you're a nice person. You are not racist. Can you be anti-racist? Take the next step.
Yes, gosh. And that's where the cookie crumbles for most. And you spoke about this when you said talk is cheap, action is everything. I love this. It's like a quote that's going to have to go up on my wall because it is true. This is the second thing I hear from leaders I speak with. I keep hearing DEI is dead right now, right? I can't believe my organization is moving backwards. So once you have that seat at the table as a leader, right?
Yeah.
How do you go break these stereotypes to set an example for others on the fact that action is everything? And that is where we need to be as leaders. So what would action look like when these conversations go on? So you're not commiserating with these, I just call nonsensical headlines, and you're doing something to change it.
I think the way I would respond to this, by saying DEI is dead, I would use examples. If, for example, it's a person who identifies as a man, I will talk about, okay, fine. If especially they have a child, we, especially in the Nordic region, we've had a lot of advanced paternal rights and maternal rights and all that. But I would ask them, okay, fine, you think DEI is dead. How would you like it if all the benefits and the freedoms you now have will be taken away from you, will be snatched away from you? How would even a person who's a mother or a birther, how will they feel if they didn't have this amount of time of paid leave to spend time to bond with their new child? How will they feel if that was taken away? Because people don't understand equity unless you're talking about how equity is important to them.
Yes.
They will minimize equity when you're speaking about other people.
Oh my gosh, say that again. Say that again for everyone here. This is such an important one. Please say that again.
But if it's equity for other people, then it doesn't matter, or it's causing problems, or it's too much. So we always need to bring the conversation back to them and tell them how they are, because everyone is benefiting, whether you're a man or a woman. If you are racialized as white in spaces, for example, in the Nordic region, you have a lot of privileges. So we need, if you tell me it's dead, I'm going to speak about the privileges you have, because someone decided, or a group of people decided, hey, you know what? This person is experiencing life differently because of this and this and this, and they shouldn't be punished or ignored or be seen as going through it as the other person. So we need to make these accommodations to make sure that they can do this, they can come back to work, they can do all these things. So we need to speak about equity and how it affects them and how it will feel if we took it away from them.
It's so powerful and so yet simple, right? But it's so powerful because it is, in this case, you're almost centering it back on them, because we usually say like decenter whiteness, which is true, but that is all stuff that no one can even tap their head around in a corporate space yet. And so I feel when we take these conversations, this activism to our teams, to our leaders, and as leaders ourselves, there's this, everyone knows about the privilege wheel. You can Google it online. It's like the privilege wheel, where you can identify where all your privileges lie and you can map it out. And it's crazy, right? Because for the longest time, I'd walk on planet Earth and be like, because I was the only in every space I went to for many years. So I'd just be like, my life is crazy. It's crazy hard, right? Because it was hard being the only in many spaces. But when I did the privilege wheel many years ago, I was like, you have so much privilege. Do you even recognize it? And once you recognize your privilege, then you have no excuse not to act.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And so I think that's almost an easy exercise. It's a coloring exercise. Go get, as a leader, print a bunch of these privilege wheels off, sit down as a team and have your team color it in. Because then we recognize all of us have, in different situations, varying kinds of privileges.
We have to always remember, especially places like in the Nordics, education is free, right? For people who are citizens here or from the EU. But people don't even think about how that is a privilege. But what if we said, you know what, it doesn't matter how much you make or how much taxes you give back, you need to start paying for your education. Then everyone will be like, hey, that's not good. But then when we speak about other things that people who are racialized as Black or Asian are going through, then people are like putting up all these barriers as if we don't have enough. Okay, let's go back. If you want us to center how whiteness benefits you and how looking at yourselves as a community and making sure no one is left behind is helping you as a community. We can talk about that. We can talk about the education. We can talk about students having benefits in different spaces. There's equities all around us. So we just need to specifically say, okay, we have this happening this for this group of people because this is what they can afford, or these are the circumstances they have. But why should it be different when we are talking about, for example, racism? Why shouldn't we even have the basic education, anti-racism education in schools, in organizations? Because if the racism we experienced, number one, was happening to any other group with another name, they will do something about it.
Yes, of course. It's a great question, actually. Why is this not like compliance training?
Exactly.
Why is it not like sexual harassment training? We get the training. Now, what happens is a whole other question. But it does not even exist because it feels politicized. That's the problem. It's politicized to a point where it's, oh, you belong to this group if you're talking about racism and anti-racism work. And you belong to this group if you just are like, I like everybody, everyone is the same.
Yes, yes.
What do you think of that? Nonsense.
I think it also comes from, especially for people in the global majority, we have always had to deal with white saviors. First, we dealt with colonialism, which is still there. And then now we are dealing with a lot of white saviorism everywhere we go. And I think that creates a problem because, for example, if you're coming from a country like Kenya and you're coming to Finland, there's already all this information out there that Finnish people are the most amazing people. They are great people. So then how do you convince these same people that they need to learn from you? How do you convince these same people that there's a racism problem? They can see it's there. It's been reported it's there. But how do you make the same people see these otherwise people as valuable? Because we've already had this thing where they are the ones who are right. They are the ones who are making the decisions and they are the ones who are saving people. So then how does it turn around and become, okay, they have to now learn how to treat other people? So that's why. So white saviorism and colonialism is not helping us. It hasn't helped us because it's created this mindset where no one can learn from us and no one can learn anything about us from us.
That's an unlock. That is an unlock right there because you're absolutely, I come from India, like we were colonized for a few good centuries. But it's interesting, right? Because it's such an important point of reflection when you wonder and when you're shouting and screaming, why are you not listening? Listen to us. We're racialized. We get it. We understand the challenges. And then at the same time, we have upheld and put this pedestal of, no, you've been right. You've made decisions for us. You know, in the words of the colonists, made us more civilized, like things like that, right? And so you shared something which I thought is so valuable in this specific situation. You said, how does an African woman feel after she's been invited and provided a safe space to educate the world? Joyful, peaceful, hopeful. Oh my gosh, because that's just, it speaks to this. So please share more on why this is so significant.
And again, I'm feeling so much joy even speaking about this because I just had this training which I keep talking about.
I love it. Speak it up.
Yeah. I was just speaking to one person that I'm mentoring just before this meeting. And I was telling them how much excitement and how much hope I get with every session, with every new group that I go into. And it's because they are not accustomed to seeing a person like me. Speaking to them and telling them, this is the problem, but here is the solution. They have never heard of solutions from people like me. I'm from East Africa. So the image of the East African woman, they could be from Kenya or Somalia or Sudan, South Sudan. What they've always seen about us is a woman on the ground with a child in the hand. They're looking very destitute, tattered clothes and with flies all over. This is what they know about the East African woman. And I actually even talk about this during my sessions and I tell them, when we're talking about things like confirmation bias and all these things, and I tell them, but now you have me here. You have me here. And so you have to work to understand and fight that and say, you know what? Yes, we've heard that Africans are intellectually inferior, which is racism. But then we are seeing this East African woman here. She's telling us this is the problem. This is the solution. And it makes sense. So so we need to go with what we are seeing. Here, how these people represent themselves, not how colonialism
Represent them.
So that's the difference. And that's why I feel so much power and so much peace and so much hope, because I am there and they are listening, they're asking questions, they're speaking to me. I can feel it when there's conversations that they haven't had this experience before. And they are so happy. You can see them light up. From the minute you go in, you see them, you see this, you can feel the spirit
energy. Yes, the spirit lifting.
Yes, and you can see, I'm like, how can I not feel hopeful after that?
I love it. But you're helping create those spaces for conversation, which is so critical. Because so I'll actually recommend everyone, please follow Mary. And you're gonna when you go on her feed, especially if this is all new to you, if all of this language is really new to you, go take a course. But if you go onto her feed, you're gonna be like, what the heck? I never learned this in my history class. I didn't learn this in my history, because that's what I really love what you do too, is again, free unpaid labor for the rest of us. We are curating content for us to educate ourselves, to look beyond and ask questions beyond what we were taught. Because we know the history books are always written from the eyes, the ears, the hands of the oppressor. And now we're people, not now, through the ages, people have continuously are changing the narrative. And if you have now brought yourself into this space, really open your eyes wide open. And the one thing I tell a lot of people when I sometimes do keynotes is, a lot of things I'm going to say is going to make you uncomfortable. And that's a good thing. Lean into that discomfort and write down what made you uncomfortable. Then on the weekend, so even this conversation between Mary and me right now, if you're just like, ooh, I didn't like that. Or, oh, I don't believe that. Oh, I'm not that. Write down what was the moment, and then just take some time to reflect on this over the weekend and then take action.
Yes.
Because I feel like it is uncomfortable, and it's meant to be, right?
It is. We should be uncomfortable. You are talking about human issues. We're not talking about a party. We're not talking about a hobby. We are speaking about human issues. We are speaking about changing systems that have been here for centuries. And I see sometimes that there are a lot of good people. They spend a lot of time in Africa, in Asian countries, everywhere, in Latin America. They go everywhere. But then I still see when they create content, they are still doing things in a very colonialist fashion. For example, I've seen a person who's lived in Kenya, or not lived in Kenya, but studied in Kenya.
Yeah.
And they come back here and they are talking about a book written about African people, but the author is a white person. And then they are already a white person. So they are reviewing a book written about Africans by a white person. And this is a person who spent some time, some high quality academic time in Kenya. So you see the confusion. So proximity to us or knowing us is not enough. You actually need to have this kind of education where we are speaking about anti-racism.
Yes.
Where do I start? And why am I doing this? What examples do you show me? How am I perpetuating these issues? How am I continuing them? So you're not having a conversation with a person who is qualified in anti-racism, and you're simply speaking to everyone, okay, yeah, they are racially marginalized, I now know about them. There's a difference. Especially when you're coming to countries like Asian countries or African countries. These are people who have been socialized to see you as better. And I'm not saying that everyone thinks that, but this is how we are socialized, because I grew up there. We are socialized to see people coming from European countries as better. And we also have this cultural thing where we are supposed to make them feel comfortable. So if we're talking about anti-racism being uncomfortable, how can you tell me you learned lessons in situations where people were simply being hospitable and making sure you are comfortable?
In ERG group at some point when I was in the corporate world, and our D&I leader was saying she's Jewish and she's a white woman. And she's usually, when I go around spaces, I look like everyone else, right? Like I'm one of everyone else, no big issue. People don't know until I say my last name or something else, but they're just like, oh, okay. And then they may choose to treat me differently or lean into a privilege that they may think my group has or whatever it is. But then she put herself in an assembly with, it was one of the sororities, the African American sororities in the US. And she was the only white woman in this group of like beautiful black and brown sisters that were congregated in New York. And she's like, it's not until that moment when I realized, I just assumed that proximity to having a black colleague, proximity to having an Indian colleague, proximity to having, I don't know, name whatever intersection, a colleague who's LGBTQ, whatever, made me understand their challenges and issues or whatever else. And I noticed when I was in this space, because I was the only, but an only that has always been seen as, whether it be the savior or whatever it might be, that people made accommodations for me.
Yeah.
And so then I had to ask myself, how often do I do this for others? And I see this all the time. I have a husband who's Caucasian. So when he comes to India, I'm constantly checking on him. Are you doing okay? Is there anything you need? My parents are like all over him. Do you need something? My friends are constantly checking on him. We're like, oh, don't go here. Don't do that. We'll watch out for this. We'll make it as comfortable as possible. That man has been to India 7 or 8 times. He should be fine. I go to the US. No one's doing that to me.
Exactly.
My husband grew up in a primarily white dominant town of 15,000 people. No one's making accommodations to be like, hey, do you want to go to Meyer? There are men walking around with guns in their back pocket and Confederate flags. Does that bother you? No one's asking me that question. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really interesting. When you find yourself in that position as that individual that does not belong to the global majority, how and where do you ensure that you can put yourself into situations to truly investigate with curiosity, besides the education that we all need to get, but actually be in physical spaces where you can start shifting the tide as you see this happening towards you, which is accommodations and all of this other aspects of reciprocating white saviorism.
Yeah, actually, this even what you're asking me reminds me of something a client asked me when they are going to Africa. How do I understand when people are really making too many accommodations for me? How do I react to that? Well, I will tell them they need to start saying no. You need to start to going into spaces. You know your privileges. You always need to know your privileges. That's number one. Know your privileges in whatever environment you're going into. And then you need to start learning to say no. Say no to yourself and start saying no to the people there. Because if you're going to Kenya, for example, and people are saying, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do this for you, because this is what we have been conditioned to do. You can't say no. And you can actually turn around and say, I can do this for you.
Yes, I can do this for you.
Yes, when people are making accommodations for you and making you comfortable all the time. Say no to yourself and say no to these people because you are making them understand that, you know what, it's okay for you to continue this and it's not okay for them to continue this. So start saying no and start doing it for others. Do it for others. When someone is telling you're from this amazing country, you are this blessed, you are this. No, I want to learn your culture. I have already learned this and this. I want to learn from you. First-hand experience. I want to hear from you. What is your history? Yeah. How does this and this affect you? How does business, how does this, everything from Europe affect you as an African or as an Asian person? So learn to say no and start asking questions. And you know what? Don't exploit people. It's very easy not to exploit people. I even talk about small things like people say, well, I went to Africa and it was so cheap. This was amazing. This was so cheap. But you do realize you do not have to actually give people that hideously low price for you. You can actually decide I don't have to give them a few shillings. You can give them more. Gosh, you can say, no, I will give you this. It starts with you.
Mary, that is because it's the same. We see this with virtual assistants right now. I have some people celebrating, oh my God, I got an amazing virtual assistant for $5 an hour in Latin America, somewhere in like Brazil or Argentina. I'm like, what the heck? No, go back to those people and say, no, I'm not going to pay you $5. I'm going to pay you $52 or whatever that rate is that you're going to pay a VA in your own country, because that's exploitation. That is absolute exploitation on all levels.
Spreading the message and they're going there and advertising to more people. Hey, you need to go here because it's cheap.
Yes.
You are continuing the colonialism and you think you are not racist. Even the way they invest, the way they're coming to our nations to invest, they need to really change everything. It's all a mess. I'm just going to be honest, because they always say we have done this in Africa, so we have this new organization or we are doing this nonprofit. But how did you do it? Are you doing it the same way everyone else is doing it? You need to completely change your systems.
Systems, yes. That is, it starts and ends with systems that were never changed or feel oppressive and then feel too difficult to change, and then no one takes any action to change it. So if I were to leave everyone with this one line, and then Mary, I'm going to ask you to bring us to a close, to share with people where they can find you, how they can find your work and connect with you. But I'll leave you with this line from Mary, basically, which is talk is cheap, action is everything. So folks, what is one action you're going to take after you listen to this episode on your journey of anti-racism? Mary, over to you.
So thank you so much. So talk is cheap. Every single person needs to do something. And I especially want leaders to understand that it is your responsibility to make sure that the people working in your organization are safe. They make people safe. And they do that both within and outside there. So it's your responsibility. It's not simply going into work and thinking people can teach themselves. So we need for people to start having this, to adopt this, I want to learn attitude. And I want to keep learning. You can find me on LinkedIn. I post content on LinkedIn at least every other day, or if not every day. And you can go to my website. That's www.crestimpact.com. I have my courses there, and usually my courses can be done individually, or you can choose the group alternative. And so just come meet me, send me a message, and I'm happy to take you through the process of DEI and anti-racism.
Love it. I love it. So Embracing Only a podcast community, please lean into this offer that Mary has so kindly put out there. We'll have all the links in the blog and in our show notes. Thank you so much again, Mary, for gracing us with all these gems. We really, truly appreciate having you on here. And to our community, take care, and we'll see you soon and speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.